Alright, sorry about that. I just had to grab a screwdriver because this thing is held on by two Gentex tamper screws used with the Commander 2, 3, and 4, and I think the 1 as well. But that screw there and this screw down here are the screws we use to take this apart. So, let's take it apart. You don't have to unscrew them all the way, because this is made of wood, of course, the dress panel and the back. I'm going to use some sturdier wood at some other time so it doesn't bend and stuff like that, because that gets annoying. So another thing I have to remove is I have to remove this cable here to get under there, which is actually kind of smart in my case because I actually know where the wires go. So if you don't know where the wires go and you take those out, you're pretty much screwed. Haha, no pun intended. Anyway, so now we have a huge wiry mess. As you can see, huge wiry mess under here. So I'm going to explain what all this stuff is. Alright, these are obviously screw terminals. These screw terminals are what allows you to connect things from inside here, the panel, to the outside devices like notification appliances, smoke detectors, pull stations, etc. These bottom two terminals here are for panel power. This provides power to the panel, to this thing, so that this works. Alright? Does that make sense? Get it? Got it? Good. Alright. And then you skip a terminal. This third terminal does absolutely nothing. And the fourth, fifth, and the sixth terminal are for the pull station. Now, why are there 3 terminals for a pull station? Well, it's because of the way that my zones work. I couldn't really figure out a way to do system trouble other than this, and it doesn't really work too well, so I'm going to try and figure out a different way to do it at some point. So let's go ahead and just go with the setup that I've got now. This bottom pin, if I'm not mistaken, goes to power. Let's have a look here. Let's see, top rail goes to, yes, okay. So if that one's going to, okay, this bottom one goes to ground. This bottom terminal here, this terminal number 4 goes to ground. Alright? And this will actually go to pull station. This will go straight to the pull station. This is the data. This will also go straight to the pull station. And this terminal here is power. It will go directly to the end of circuit module, so that the end of circuit module is powered. Okay? So let me explain how this works. The end of circuit module is basically a potentiometer. If you don't know, potentiometer is basically, we call it a pot. It has a little screw. There's actually one right here on the panel interface for the LCD contrast. You literally take a screwdriver and you can turn it to adjust the amount of resistance on the current. Alright? It's basically a varying resistor. You just turn it to get resistance. I'm sure you guys in the fire alarm community know that. Am I really holding this way? Okay. Let's fix that. Alright, sorry about that. I was holding it upside down. Alright. So the way this works, the pull station will tie ground and the data pin together, shorting it to 0. When the Arduino sees that on the analog pin, oh, this equals 0, it will send the panel into alarm. Now, if one of these wires were to disconnect, it would jump to somewhere around 1023, or the maximum 5-volt value. Alright? So, if that were to happen, if the value is above 900, the panel goes into alarm. Now, if you adjust the potentiometer to go all the way up to 900 or above, it's going to continually go into trouble. If I said alarm just a minute ago, I meant trouble. It'll tell the panel to go into trouble. Alright, if it hits exactly 0, it will go into alarm. Alright? Does that make a little bit of sense? Glad it does. Alright. Now you'll see these 2 breadboard looking things right here. These are power rails that I took from my breadboard that I used to use in the panel, which is the proto board over here. I'll deal with that later. Anyway, but you can look at my previous system test to look at that. Alright, now these blue things over here, these are called relays. A lot of fire alarm users are familiar with relays. If you've built a panel, or even if you haven't, you're familiar with relays because there's NACs and relays on a panel. This one also has NACs and relays, it just doesn't have the relay that it uses is for the auxiliary power output, which is for the smoke detectors. And it has two NACs, however I only have enough terminals to wire up for one right now if I want to have the smoke detector in there. So I only have one wired up. Does that makes a little bit of sense, I hope. But what relays are is they are automatic switches. They're controlled by the microcontroller, which is right here, this greenish blue thing. That's an Arduino Uno. I probably should invest in getting a Mega so I can perform more functions, have more screw terminals up here, get some smaller ones hopefully at some point so I don't have to deal with these. Anyway, I need some more screw terminals is my point in case there. But here's the Arduino. This is called a microcontroller. What the microcontroller does is it reads a program that you program into it, and this of course reads in C++. Wow, why did I make a delay there? Anyway, it reads C++, which is a programming language. And what happens here is it will take that programming language and do exactly what you told it to. Now, it doesn't speak English. You can't just tell the Arduino to turn on NAC 4. You'd have to tell it, well, there is no NAC 4. Let's say just NAC 1. Turn on NAC 1. You can't tell it that. You have to program it with lines such as digital write 7 high, which is programming terms for turn on digital pin number 7. Alright? And say which digital pin number 7 is hooked up to relay number 1, which is NAC 1. That's the reason I had the commanders up in the last test, was because I had one I only had one NAC to play around with, so yeah. Kinda sucks with the limited screw terminals, but that's okay. I can work through that. But I use these relays as NACs. The first 3 are NACs and the 4th one is a relay. Does that make any sense? Glad it does. Alright. So these power rails, you'll see there's 2 of them. Now this power rail right here, let's see which one this is. Alright. So the first power rail closest to the relays is the 5-volt power rail. 5-volt power and 5-volt ground. The second one is 24-volt power and 24-volt ground. I have 2 separate power supplies for this panel, which, if you'll see at the very top, right here, this is the power input. Positive and negative. Positively negative. Anyway, positive and negative. Positive, negative. Positive, negative. That's how that goes. How do I remember that? Nobody knows. Rhyme not intended. But those are the 24-volt inputs. So there's 2 power inputs. The one at the bottom here is the 5-volt. The one up here is the 24-volt. So that's why I have 2 thingies. Transformers. The things that you plug into the wall. They're called transformers. They're just transformers in a box. So that's basically everything that's on this panel. I'm going to try and recap real quick. So, front, this is the interface. Under here, this is the motherboard and whatnot. Motherboard here, I use an Arduino Uno, which I program in C++. I have 2 power rails, a 5-volt power rail and a 24-volt power rail, and both have their own individual ground. I have screw terminals on the side, which I've gone over the functions of those. The auxiliary output, by the way, is the 2 below the 24-volt in. I have relays here, which are controlled by this to click on and off whenever told to by a specific event. And, of course, I have the zone here, which wires to the pull station or detectors common. I'll get to a better explanation of that later. I'm so sorry I'm terribly explaining things, but you should know this if you're a fire alarm expert. But these three here, my strange way of doing it, reads a potentiometer. It'll read a potentiometer. It'll get its value, which its normal value is around 200, 300. If it hits 0, it goes into alarm, which is when the alarm is pulled, of course, or there's a short between the ground and the data pin. And if a wire is cut, it will go into trouble because it will magically jump to 1023 somewhere. Somewhere above 900 is where it typically jumps to. So, yeah. That's about it for everything I've explained today. I hope you guys make a little bit of sense of how I did this. In the next part of this, if I get enough read on this, if I get enough feed from it, I will make a second part which goes into technical detail, where I explain things a little bit better. Of course, I would have to do a couple of other things before being able to make that video. That video itself will probably be a 2-part video because there's so much I had to do with this in the past year and a half. It's absolutely been a great adventure. I've loved it so much. It's been absolutely great to have this thing around. Very fun project to do. I absolutely recommend doing one on your own. It took a lot of figuring things out, but that's alright. There's nothing wrong with that. Thank you guys so much for watching. If you sat through this whole video, thank you, because I know it was rather boring, I guess. I don't think it was boring because I love my projects. I love the things I get to do. But I appreciate it if you did watch this video. If you enjoyed it, why not give it a thumbs up? Or subscribe as well if you haven't already, because guess what? Subscribing is free. You should take advantage of every free opportunity that you get. Thank you guys for watching. I will see you guys in the next video, which should be System Test 12. Hope you brought your earplugs. Don't wear headphones for that one, because your ears will absolutely die from, hint hint, the new notification appliance, which I'm going to go ahead and tell you is a SpectrAlert Advance. That's a little hint for you guys, that if you watch this whole video, you get to know that there's a SpectrAlert Advance in my next system test. Hope you guys enjoyed. Thank you for watching. I know I've carried this ending on so long. I always do that for every video. See you all in System Test 12.